Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Hey, everybody. Bruce is not in town this week, so I'm standing in for him. Welcome to the Oregon Voters Digest show. We're going to have a very, very good show for you today. And I'm very, very excited about being able to introduce you to the Multnomah County Democratic Communications Director, Amy Fox. You know, friends, if you have been active for the last, 25, 30 years in politics as far as paying attention and maybe running or volunteering and stuff, you've learned how important and how advanced communications has gotten. We've gone from newsletters now to email lists, to Facebooks. So we got a lot to cover today with Amy over what's going on in Oregon and, of course, the Multnomah County area with politics. Amy, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Amy, before we dig into where you're at in politics.
Oh, should I be?
Yeah, go and sit a little closer.
Should I come a little closer to you?
Yeah, come a little closer to me. That doesn't offend me. I'm a Marine. We love women sitting close to us. No, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the numbers of politics here.
Well, I've been the communications chair. I'm pretty green for about 5 months. And I'm relatively new to Oregon. I've been here for almost 6 years. Mm-hmm. I'm a mother of 3 kids, elementary school age.
Oh, cool.
And
so your kids get to see you on TV today?
Yeah.
Hey, what are their names?
Maya, Indra, and Sage.
Oh, good. Hello, Maya, Indra, and Sage. I like that name, Indra.
Thank you.
Yeah. Now, the first question I want to ask you is, what are the primary areas of concern in Oregon today when it comes to Democratic politics?
Well, I think that the number one things that we are looking to achieve in the near future is universal health care, the green energy jobs bill. We're hoping to get that through so that we can start building infrastructure and jobs that are clean and green to do 2 things. Take care of global warming and at the same time have union, steady, solid jobs in Oregon. So those are the first 2. The next one is affordable housing and taking care of homeless issues and a demilitarization of the police force. I could go on.
Well, let's go backwards here.
Okay.
Let's start about the demilitarization of the police force.
Yes.
Something that I agree with, by the way. Even though I love being a Marine and stuff like that, I'm surprised at what I see sometimes as far as the equipment. I mean, I want my officers safe. I think everybody does.
Right.
But I'm seeing what I call offensive weapons. You understand? I mean, and tactics as opposed to defensive and crowd control.
Right.
You understand? I mean, these guys are literally in Portland armed better than the Marines who protect the embassies.
Right.
Yeah.
So
what's the state looking at doing that? Are you looking at addressing this at the state level or the county level or the city level?
I think that the focus would be city level, and Joanne Hardesty is our new city council member who is...
No, she has not yet.
Not yet, but she will be, and that was one of her big platforms that we're sort of excited to see, to work with her on that.
Well, what is she proposing?
I'm not sure. She hasn't laid out the plan yet, or I'm not aware of it. But I know that she's got a strong history in that arena.
Well, yeah, she's been an activist against cops, but yeah, that's about it. Yeah. What about the green energy stuff that you're looking at?
So the clean energy jobs...
Clean energy. I keep calling it green energy.
Green energy?
Yeah,
clean energy?
Yeah.
That's right. Let's use the sun, you know? Because we don't want to be left behind, right? China is going to be completely solar by 2020 or something, 2024. They're going to be kicking back and just powered by the sun. And we're going to be sitting here with coal, and children are going to be waiting for a lump of coal for Christmas so that they can heat their house if we continue on this vein. So we're hoping that we can take Oregon and Multnomah County and move it into the future where we can be the beacon of hope. Look, we are progressive, we're moving forward, and we're switching off from fossil fuels, and we're moving to the sun and the wind and the waves and all of those different great technologies so that we're not left behind.
Are we doing this at the state level?
So the state level is the Clean Energy Jobs Bill.
Okay.
And then on the city level, which Multnomah County Democrats just endorsed, there is we're trying to get enough signatures to get on the ballot for a small tax for corporations so that we can invest in taking homes and making them energy efficient, solar, all of that. And
Are you talking about the retail tax?
No, it's not a retail tax.
What's the tax on retail businesses? Yeah, they were just at my house the other day.
Did you sign it?
No.
No. Why not?
Are you kidding? We've got major retailers right now who are only signing year-by-year leases right now. Mm-hmm. In other words, they're not planning on necessarily being open 5 years from now.
Right.
So we put a tax on some of those retail outlets, those brick-and-mortar ones, right? What we're going to see is a lot of people in the retail industry who don't make that much money in the first place lose their jobs because some of these places are teetering already. One of the major malls here in Portland is having a devil of a time right now filling their space because of online businesses, retail businesses like Amazon and others have really cut margins down to historically insane lowness. You know, and the retail, with a lot of our people in Portland who work in the retail business, they're suffering from the least growth in income. In other words, they get the lowest raises. I think they're averaging like less than 1% per year raises. So you're thinking, I'm like, man, you know where this tax comes from? As a Democrat, what I'm hurting is I know it's going to come from labor. If a business wants to stay in business after this tax goes in, even though they're $1 billion business, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to look down at their labor force and take that 1% out of that labor force. Mm-hmm. Or they're going to shut down, which means that labor force doesn't get paid anyway. So no, that disappointed me. Okay. I know you didn't want to hear that, but as a Democrat, that disappointed me. I even told my precinct committee person, I want to find the Democrat that came up with that idea and punch them. Because this is something that only a Republican would think is a damn good idea, you know. So sorry about that. You know, I don't believe in putting people out of work. If you want to tax people, yes, let's tax the rich, but let's really do it. You understand what I'm talking about? Let's really do it. Let's go to the landowner, in other words, the mall, the landowners, and say, I want 20% of what you're getting from all the retailers in your business. You understand what I'm talking about? And not hurt the retailers.
I like that.
I like it too. But get a Democrat that gets elected to think like that. You understand what I'm talking about? It just disappoints the hell out of me. They'll put a bunch of hardworking Democrats out of work. Thus make Trump look good. But they won't go after what they tell the people they're going after. You understand? The
Correct.
landowners at our malls get to, ask for as much as they want when it comes to percentages of the revenue from the retailers. So you just put a cap on it and tax the rest. And that would get you what you wanted, and that would not put people out of work.
It's a good plan.
Yep. But it's not going to happen.
Why not?
Because a black guy thought of it.
We could bring that out.
I live in Portland, Oregon. They never would do that idea. There's not a single different. Peter Courtney and those guys, all the people who's involved in this, they would never, ever do
I think that
like
this is a beautiful plan. I think that we could definitely get behind something like that.
They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it.
I challenge that.
I'm sorry. Anyway, what do you think the topics will be in politics for the rest of the year in 2019?
Oof. Are you talking on a national level?
Let's start local. Because we got a lot of good stuff going on. We got, like I said, the Joanne and Loretta thing. We got...
Right, I misspoke. They are running off. There's a runoff between them.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah, but don't worry. It's okay for you to let people know who you support.
It's
okay. I posted on my Facebook. I literally told my friends. I've known both Loretta and what do you call it? Joanne for years. Mm-hmm. I disagree with both of them on some things. They're both incredible women.
Right.
We are lucky beyond words to have these two smart and experienced women going at it.
Right.
So it's okay to support Loretta. Not Loretta, but Joanne.
Sure. Well, and I think that both of them are really strong, amazing candidates.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So, but anyway, not to talk about them, what are the issues you think, let's just say for city council.
For city council.
Let's forget about the individual. Let's just say it's filled by X. X
Okay.
is either Loretta or Joanne. Okay?
Okay.
What are the issues facing city council in 2019?
Well, I think the biggest challenges are affordable housing, homelessness. I think that is going to be front and center. Jobs, growth in that way. I think those are the big things. Making the city livable so that this is a place where people can live, can afford to live, want to live. So
I agree. What do you think about Wapato when you talk about the homeless? What do you think about that issue?
So, me personally, or the Multnomah County Democrats? The Multnomah County
Let's
Democrats.
start off with them, because that's who you work for, but then we kind of come to
Well,
you.
they don't take a stand on that.
Okay.
They, I mean, so that was just, it's something that has been built and then was never utilized. So it was what it was. People are glad that it wasn't filled with inmates. And so that was exciting for us. That we're not just trying to fill a quota and fill beds to make money for the prison industries. So on that note, yay, we're glad that that never was needed. But then past that, no stand. For me personally, that was just, it's how much money? It was almost $60 million of investment of
Something
tax
like that.
dollars.
Something like that.
It
Plus
just-
about $300 or $400 a year to upkeep it.
So it was a significant chunk of, if this was our wallets that we were directly paying for, it would be nice to have utilized it instead of selling it for almost nothing.
Yeah.
But I don't know how we could have utilized it. I mean, there is something that could have been done maybe, but that's me personally.
You know, my only concern about Wapato, and I like the idea. I told all my friends that it's a great idea. And is it humane for us to put people with mental issues, emotional issues, people who we used to put in a state hospital, right?
Right.
Is it moral for us to put them in there to sleep overnight and then kick them out the next morning?
No.
See, I'm thinking we're going to end up turning that into a mental hospital. You know, I think the majority of the residents, and the last time we had one, the state couldn't afford it. You know, which is
Right.
why we shut it down. And you know, it just shows how complicated the situation is. You know, my heart broke about 2-3 weeks ago when that guy got killed by the police over there in Southeast Portland.
Right.
Clearly mental, clearly a threat and everything, but I tell everybody the real failure isn't that the cops killed him. The real failure is we don't have the resources to support some guy like this, to keep him from hurting others or himself.
Right.
We don't. So what do you think about Wapato becoming that location?
Well, or we have a lot of drug issues happening right now.
Well,
it
from
could
what I've
be
told,
a
they
drug
go,
treatment.
They go
It could
hand in
be-
hand. Yeah.
There's all sorts of things, but Wapato's now privately owned. We sold it for $5 million.
Yeah, but I heard that they're still gonna.
They're
work
gonna,
out-
but it's a private investment at this point. This is out of the public's hand. We don't get a say. They could turn it
For now.
into a place where people have the scary carnivals for Halloween.
Amy, they would not. They would not. They
their
would not.
choice.
These guys would not be doing what they're doing if they fully weren't expecting one day for the taxpayer to get involved.
Oh, okay. Well,
You know, these guys are rich, but they're not that rich. You know, no. We are eventually going to get involved
okay.
if they do any homeless there. What else do you think we should do for the homeless?
Well, I mean, a house for everyone. Obviously, that is Multnomah County Democrats is saying a house for everyone because housing, safe housing, is a human right.
It is.
And if you don't have a safe place to go to raise your family, then when we say that we're all for family values, but then we won't support a family and make sure that every family has at least some basic safety net, some place to go that what they can afford, then we don't really believe in the family.
Well, what's the path you think the Democrats want to take for that?
Well, investment in affordable housing, obviously, so that there is. I know that you're not a fan of rent control,
Hell
and
no.
I'm learning
Yeah.
about this being what causes rents to go up. So that's...
I've been known to knock on doors at night and yell at people, verbally abuse people for leading the charge on this, because I know what motivates it. But let's forget about that.
Okay.
Let's look at other solutions. What other solutions do you think are out there for us to bring investment into developing affordable housing? How do you feel about land banking? Do you think the Democrats have thought about the city or the county or both going in now and buying land in Portland for the future for the development of public housing and affordable housing? You understand what I'm talking about, for people?
Absolutely.
Because one of the problems I've always had with Portland is we don't plan for poor people. If you look at all our plans, it's always for upper middle class and richer people.
Right, and everybody else gets left behind.
And they're not even in the picture.
Right.
You understand? And even when people talk about the people moving here, they tend to talk about the high-tech people and the professionals. They don't talk about the people who are coming here and putting in applications at Subway.
Right, and then the artists. The thing
and
about
the artists.
the whole,
and the artists
we,
too.
Artists and musicians and the things that make Portland have this great flavor are being priced out and pushed out, and so you lose that flavor. And the arts are so important. And if we don't have some place for an artist to survive and live, then we lose that in our community.
Well, perfect example is when I grew up here in Portland, Northwest 23rd was where a lot of artists lived, and Northwest in general. And they worked at the coffee shops, like, coffee people. And they worked in the bars, like the Blue Moon and stuff like that. You understand? And they did their art. They lived in their community, and they had their art studios and their lofts. And they worked now those same jobs, you got people with master's degrees, and God knows what. You don't have that income line for our struggling artists as they go.
Right.
So what do you think about how are we going to fix that?
Well, your idea of land banking is definitely a good one. I'd like to see proposals on that, but absolutely. I mean, so the history of the affordable housing, which we were talking about before the show, is that starting with the war on drugs in 1980, we took the money that we were putting into affordable housing, and we just put it into building supermax prisons on a national scale. And so that became our affordable housing. And so 30 years later, people are saying there's no affordable housing. Well, it takes about 30 years. So this is going to be a long-term solution that's going to have to go through. Some people are going to have to come into office and have a long-term vision that is going to exceed their particular candidacy or how long they run, and have this thing of being stewards for the future. And we're going to need people that are going to have long-range visions to enact this, to shift back to an investment for the long term so that we can build this up. And so probably my children won't benefit from affordable housing, but maybe their children in Portland are going to start to recognize that, and this will become a more livable city. But it's going to take that long to really shift, and people are very now focused. I want an immediate solution, and it takes longer. Like this isn't something where you can pay attention for 10 minutes and then walk away. The democracy and making this work, this is the path of, this is something that you do. Like no one wants to brush and floss their teeth every day. You don't want to. You do it because you want your teeth for your whole life.
Well,
right?
I do it because girls won't kiss you if you've got bad breath. So I do want to brush and floss every day.
Well, good.
Okay.
But you have a vision. But so doing the brushing and flossing, the democracy in the long term is something that you have to do and show up for, and not just vote, but pay attention and make sure that the people that you voted for once in office are following what they promised, and to continue to guide and ask politely for them to continue on the pathway that they set forth, and to hold people accountable so that they do that.
You've hit on a point that I bring up with my friends a lot here in Portland. Most of my friends, even though this has kind of been known as a Republican show, we got a lot of Democrats that watch this. And I tell my Democratic friends all the time that most of my Democratic friends, most of my liberal and progressive friends, are far more liberal and progressive than the liberals and progressives we vote for. They're just, and they don't, what they do is they vote and they forget. And then these people get in position. And then they end up being
Incumbents, name recognition.
Name recognition. Like for me, name recognition means nothing to me. If I've heard of somebody for a long time, it means nothing to me. I always will find out personally what the other people are offering.
Right.
And I try to keep up as best I can. I'm busy like everybody else on what the people I voted for, are doing. Mm-hmm. And if I don't think the person I voted for last time hunted for me, as I call it, mm-hmm. I vote for the dog that I think will hunt.
Right.
You understand? Yeah. Well, now I got a good, we call it comparison of that, example of that, and that is the Monroe, what's her name, Shamia Fagan race. Mm-hmm. I mean, Rod Monroe has been around a long time.
For a bit.
He's got a name recognition.
He does have name recognition.
And so does Shamia, but nothing like Monroe.
Right.
What do you think happened in that district?
Well, I think that it goes to show that there's not any race, any candidate that's not vulnerable. And that you have to listen to your constituents. And if your constituents start to feel that you're not listening to them, mm-hmm. then you're going to be challenged. Expect it. You're going to be challenged, and there's a possibility that you will not hold on to your position. So, mm-hmm. and as you said that you're not a fan of rent control or no cause eviction, mm-hmm. but that is what the constituents were asking for. And Rod Monroe wasn't voting that way. And so a bunch of activists, grassroots activists, got mm-hmm. out there and were upset. And when they felt that he was personally benefiting from his position because he is a landlord, mm-hmm. I think that people have a lot of distrust.
Well, you see, my problem with Rod Monroe in this situation is he did not feel he should come down from the mountain and explain to his constituents why he voted against those rent stabilizations.
Right.
As somebody as experienced as him, his family's very experienced in real estate, mm-hmm. he didn't throw out to the question to his constituents, why would somebody who appears to have so much to gain mm-hmm. from rent control, why am I voting against it? And the thing is, he didn't, I think he just took for granted his name, familiarity would carry him through. Mm-hmm. Not understanding that as being a leader, sometimes you've got to take the time. A lot of times you got to take the time and educate your people. When I was in Marines, we used to say this thing all the time called accomplish the mission but protect the troops. Mm-hmm. Part of protecting the troops is making sure the troops understood what was going on.
Right.
You understand? And I think that's where Shamia was able to come in. Now, Shamia came in and just said, hey, you wanted rent control, I'll vote for rent control, vote for me. But the thing is,
I'll also vote for national popular vote and health care for all,
and that too.
The clean energy jobs, and all of these things where she's like, I will be your champion for progressive.
But Shamia, if she's a progressive, she's going to vote against rent control every time. Because what Shamia is going to notice is what's happening in San Francisco. I mean, I was literally reading an article mm-hmm. in the San Francisco Chronicle mm-hmm. where they were talking about one of the reasons why so many people are moving from the market. They literally blame rent control. They literally said rent control has raised the average rent so high, it's raised the average land value so high that it is now affordable for a property owner, if they want to sell their property, to vacate everybody in the property, to pull out of rent control and leave it vacant for 2 years and sell it. They will actually make more money doing that than continuing renting it and allowing rent control to go on. So you understand what I'm talking about? So in other words, it's they've got something like about 10% of their units down in San Francisco mm-hmm. vacant because of rent. It's more they make more money keeping it vacant. You understand what I'm talking about? Than having them actually occupied. Very bad problem that we got to avoid here in Portland. We'll get it too. But Shamia is going to be the one that's going to have to come down off the mountain and explain that to people. Explain that how rent control raises land values. And the reason why we know this is every single market in the United States where we've had rent control, we've had land values increase.
Or you can counter the coasts. You have had a mass exodus from the center of the country, and everyone has moved to the coasts. And then you have this concentration of populations within all these metro areas. And so therefore, because many people want to live in a smaller area, then the price of property is going to rise as a result of just the location and
So
the
you're
nature.
saying the same thing that happened in the first 50 years of the 20th century on the East Coast is happening again, except it's affecting the West Coast now. Because we had the same thing when people started moving away from Ohio and Pennsylvania, going to New York
Right.
and Connecticut and stuff. You know what I mean? New Jersey and stuff. And then they implemented rent control, and look what happened. Now we got people moving from there
Right.
to the left coast. No, when you raise land values in critical mass locations like San Francisco, Sacramento, Portland, and stuff like that, Seattle, right? You literally are evicting the poor people out of the market.
Well, absolutely. As soon as the prices go past a certain amount, everyone's priced out of that market.
Then you have a small percentage of rent control winners.
Right.
It's about 1 or 2%.
That are there and they stay in their apartment until
Correct.
they die.
Correct. Because that's the thing people keep forgetting. There's this thing called death, disease, and hey, I just want to leave the town and live someplace else. As the turnover continues, the values go up.
Right.
The rich, the cash-rich investors have always benefited from rent control. Always. That's why you don't hear any cash-rich investors in Portland, Oregon screaming about rent control. Every time Chloe talks about rent stabilization, they hear cha-ching.
Huh.
Yeah. It's kind of like a lot of things in this world. If you don't understand how things work, and that's where Rod Monroe should have come in. As a person who understands how things work, he should have made himself vulnerable enough to go out to his constituents and say, friends, this is what's going on.
And this is why I'm voting this way.
And this is why I'm voting. Instead, he wants to do the
Instead of,
stoic
I'm
thing.
not doing this for my own personal benefit.
Exactly.
Which is what it appeared to be. On the
Because-
surface, it appeared to be, I am not doing rent control because I want to have no cause evictions and kick you out and raise the rent as much as I want. I want to be able to raise the rent by 90% if I so choose. And that was happening to people all over the city. And so having a rent stabilization so you can't raise it by more than 10% without having to pay the moving costs at least puts a slight dampening on that. So
What do you think $5,000 a unit means to a
Well-
landlord? Nothing, because our properties are going up by about $1,500 to $2,000 a month.
I think that it would
we
give
just
people
raised the value.
pause. I think it would give people pause to
Doesn't.
kick a. Well, okay. I
If
don't.
you're cash rich, it doesn't.
If you're, I suppose. I mean, I don't understand how someone who is that cash rich would be thinking.
Yep.
So I'm thinking as a person, if I had a rental, I wouldn't. First of all, I wouldn't evict someone for no reason except for to just raise the rent. But
Well, we're going to go to a break here.
okay.
And after we get to the break, I'll explain to you why the no-cause eviction
Okay.
is important. But anyway, guys, we're going to take a break. Great show, and we'll see you in just a minute.
You are watching Oregon Voters Digest. This program can be seen again on these channels on these dates and times. Tell a friend.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Oregon Voters Digest show. I'm Fred Stewart. I'm sitting in for Bruce Broussard, who is on vacation right now, but he will be back here, I think, was it next week or the week after? So anyway, we're sitting here having a great conversation with Amy Fox. And Amy Fox is with the communications department of the Multnomah County Democrats.
Correct.
She's a communications chair. And that means she's a grand poobah of all communications.
No,
for Democrats.
Not at all.
I'm just giving you a hard time. You know, I want to finish what we said about, just real quick, about rent control.
Okay.
Because Bruce is going to do another show later with rent control.
Okay.
But the biggest issue why rent control doesn't work in a market like us is our land values are going up faster than our structure values, right? And that's because of the demand based on the growth of the population. So you can't fix that problem by just trying to stabilize it, other than building a lot of houses. And that's why I tell everybody, any liberal, any Democrat that looks you in the face and says rent control is a good idea, but not building 10,000 residential, public invested residential units, don't listen to them. They're Republicans. Don't listen to them.
Right.
We got to build out of the system.
Oh, absolutely.
Build aggressive. And we got to do land banking, and we got to be thinking about where the poor are going to need housing. Not just tomorrow. 5 years, 10 years, 20 years.
Right.
And we don't have anybody doing that right now. So whenever I hear somebody talk about rent control, I'm a lifelong Democrat, I have a hard time. I know they're lying to me. But anyway, let's get into the governor's races, which I think is quite exciting.
Yes.
We've got, three great races going on here. When I say races, opportunities going on here, we got Kate Brown, of course, sitting governor. We got Newt Bueller, and we got the independent candidate, who I just forgot their name that quick. What's the independent candidate's name? Patrick Starnes. And Patrick, we don't usually have what you would call an interesting independent candidate. He's the one that's talking about campaign finance reform,
which is an important conversation to have.
Correct.
But our courts have decided in Oregon that money really does equal speech, and so there can be no limits. And that makes us, in many ways, very backwards as a result. Almost all the other states have at least some type of limits.
What do you think of Kate Brown's message?
Kate Brown's message is, I think that she's, first of all, as a woman, I appreciate all the work that she's done for women's rights, for reproductive protection. She's also been a strong champion for the environment and the economy, and I think that she is a really great person to have at the helm of this state.
You know what I congratulate her for? How inclusive she is with her appointments, not just to the judgeships, but throughout the government. The woman just blows me away, because I've known Kate Brown since '92.
Really?
Yeah. And I've always given her verbal abuse for not being as inclusive as I think she should. And I tell people I didn't see this coming with her as governor. Throughout the government of Oregon. I'm not talking about just the judgeships. But, you talk about inclusiveness when it comes to race, religion, everything.
Right.
Never had a governor, and it blows me away that our local papers don't talk about it, and that our federal representatives don't talk about it, because I think that's one of the shining beacons in this dark cloud we got with Trump, is that we've got a politician at the state level, you understand, who's pretty much doing instead of saying they're going to do.
Right. She's walking the walk.
She's walking the walk.
And she's creating this place to be the example of, this is what we can be.
Exactly.
As a country. This is what we are. This is how we should move forward. Because we're all one.
Well, make no mistake, there's an attack on the last 50 years of progressive advancements.
Right.
Right now. So in the face of that, we get this little old woman from Oregon going against the grain.
Right.
And I can't, we don't have none of the white people in media talking about it. Or do you think they're going to start talking about it before November?
I honestly think that anything with scandal will be what is brought to the forefront. And we don't talk about, we had a good day in Portland. Nobody died. Everybody lived, and Johnny got ice cream at the ice cream store. That doesn't sell papers, it doesn't make the news. So Trump tweeted about something horrific, whatever he tweeted about today, and that is what everyone focuses on. It sells, and I think
agree.
that this climate, this media climate that you just touched on, I think it's a problem. It's a turnoff for voters. I think that it's suppressing people from even engaging in politics because it's become political theater rather than talking about common sense, non-dramatic conversations that are educating people, because that's what really news should be doing. Educating people so that they can make informed decisions about everything that's available to them, and then they can make up their own minds. Not being scared and frightened or terrified into voting a certain way.
As a communications director, you sound pretty darn progressive.
Really?
That could be. We're sitting up here hoping that they would do this. I mean, the big story I know tonight or tomorrow is going to be Stormy Daniels storming into Portland, Oregon, getting naked for us.
Right.
We're not going to be talking about this woman who's the governor of Oregon, who's literally walking the progressive walk and progressive talk.
Right, who says, I'm not going to be sending any of our guards down to the border because, no, if we're going to do anything, I'm going to send my guards down to Puerto Rico and we're going to get them their electricity back because no one else is doing it. That's what she'll do, as opposed to,
She's not going to go get naked at Stars.
No, she is not going to, and that won't make a
gonna,
story.
That's not going to make a story.
Right, if she would only...
Get naked for us.
Right, then the media would be very excited about that, and we'd see nothing but it, until the next tweet.
No, I'm very, very proud of Kate Brown. Very, very, very proud of her. And I did not expect to ever say that as her as governor. I never expected it. I mean, I've always liked her, but I didn't. I mean, it hurts my feelings that Ron Wyden and Blumenauer aren't bragging about her.
Right.
You understand? I mean, she's a story they need in Washington. You understand? Instead of sitting up and yelling at whatever petty hustle Trump throws out to us, they should say, you know what, I got a woman out in Oregon. Guess what she just did today?
Right.
You understand? I think they could make it a story.
She could be the Justin Trudeau of the United States,
exactly.
Right? Because I think that a lot of people are looking at
perfect example.
Our neighbors, and they're making progress with clean energy jobs, and they're building reparations with the Native people, and they're having those conversations and saying, let's change our history, let's look at our history, and as we examine it, let's move out of the shadows, and let's move forward as a nation and evolve.
What's Newt Bueller's message? Now, from a Democrat, because we're going to have the Republican communication person in here.
Okay.
So I think it'd be a great question to ask what you think Newt Bueller's message is.
Well, I think the Republicans in the country are having competitions on who can out-Trump Trump. Who can be the most vile. I don't feel that Newt Bueller is running on how vile he can be. So as far as that goes, what he's going to run on is probably how great the Trump tax cuts are and how he wants to really extend that to the upper 1%, and then we can have trickle-down economics here in Oregon, because it works so well, because Reagan did it in California, trickle-down economics, and bankrupted the state. So then he went on to go to the country and brought it to the country so he could bankrupt the country. And then everyone's kind of bought into this, like, if you give the money to the 1%, it'll be amazing for the rest of the people. And so people are like, yay! Let's give it to them. And then they did, and then the country, is financially not doing well. The poor have gotten poorer. The rich have gotten extremely rich, and it's been very concentrated. So I think that he's going to run on that, but say it's going to be good for you.
No, I can see that. I agree.
So I think that that's going to be his message, and it's going to be, are you going to buy that? Do you believe that that is really the direction that we're going? And I think that the message is take a look at your tax returns and how much more money you have in your pocket every year, as a result of this particular tax break. And ask yourself, is it really working out? Did that work out for you?
You know, for me, what I'm interested in is, like I said before, I think Kate and her team, the people around her, they're doing great. They're winning left and right. There's also, I mean, there's going to be losses. I can't think of them right now, but I'm sure there's But how's he going to run against all these winnings? You understand? I mean, Kate keeps winning and winning and winning, and how is that going to hurt? I mean, how do you run against that?
How do you? As far as strategy goes.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I better ask you this.
I don't know.
What do you think is her biggest flaw that he can
come at? Here is Oregon's biggest flaw that he's going to be able to exploit.
Okay.
Our campaign finance and the unlimited dollars. So it doesn't really matter because a lot of this is a money game.
Okay.
And so the Democratic Party versus the Republican, we are up against an opponent with unlimited resources financially. And in a statewide election, that's scary as hell. And we're like the plucky rebels of the Star Wars.
But isn't she getting more money than him? Hasn't she collected more money than him?
Trust me, Newt Bueller is going to outspend 2-to-1, just like every other time. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
No, so what we're going to do in Oregon to counterbalance that is what we've always done. We've managed to build this grassroots network of door-to-door, knocking on our neighbors, phone calling. I mean, that's what the Democratic Party does well. So we don't have a lot of resources. Like, I'm just a volunteer. All of the Multnomah County Democrats are just volunteers. We go out.
Well, they pay you in donuts and coffee.
No, they don't.
They don't?
They do not.
They don't
There's
do that
no
no more?
donuts or coffee.
Oh,
Seriously,
my God.
you just show up and you do it, right? Because it's what you do, because you brush and floss your teeth. It's what you need to do every day if you want democracy to work. So the grassroots network in Oregon is very powerful, and that will be how we activate and mobilize our people to get out the vote.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's go back real quick to the governor, for Independent Party, the nominee for Independent. Where do you think he's going to fit in with this campaign reform? I mean, do you think this is going to help Newt, or is it going to help Kate?
It will certainly help
Or is it
Kate
gonna
because
help
it would shine a light on how much outside of Oregon money comes pouring into the coffers for Newt Bueller. And I think that that'll be something that he will bring in to the equation. And I think that that will hurt Newt Bueller's run as a result. And I think that it also might possibly move some legislation or something that hopefully the courts don't overturn so that we can start to limit the money. Because it would be really nice if we could just have our media just cover these races and put it in the papers, and so we can get the message out and say nobody gets to really put any money in except for just small-time donors.
But isn't that what the Independent Party is doing already? They're not taking in this national money, right? If my memory is correct. Aren't they being the example?
The example, I think that's what the third parties bring to the equation is because that's what the Green Party does.
So if a person asks you, oh, well, then why shouldn't I just vote for the Independent Party? Instead, because Kate's going to get some national money. She's already got some national endorsements. I mean, she's got Soros already. And Newt's going to get a lot more. Why not just vote for the Independent? Now, I'm not saying you're going to because you're the Democratic Communications Director. But, I mean, when it comes to campaign finance reform, it's such a big deal. Why not give more attention to the... What are you saying with somebody saying, well, why shouldn't I give this independent guy more attention?
Well, because...
I mean, what's your counter to that?
So my counter to that is right now until we have, say, like a star or a ranked choice voting, until we have that, voting for the third party, just like voting for the third party in the national election, was a vote for Trump. So
in other words, if a Democrat votes for the independent, you feel they're actually voting for Bueller?
It's definitely throwing it in for Newt Bueller, and this is going to be a tight race.
Okay.
So this isn't going to be something that you can't take any vote for granted. You can't take any race for granted. There's no guarantees here. So it's important that our message is a message that's compelling enough that people will not vote against somebody, but we're hoping that they're going to vote for something they see and believe.
And
they've got to trust it.
They should definitely vote for Kate Brown.
Absolutely.
Well, Kate's already got my vote. Like I tell everybody, I mean, case surprises the heck out of me. There's nothing in her history, in my opinion, that would show to I think your average person that she'd be such a capable. I mean, I piss off one of my Republican friends when I compare her to Tia. So she's probably the most effective governor in my lifetime since Tia. Like I said, the woman's killing it.
Right. Well, I think 20 years in the legislature really helps. So she understands the process. She's got great experience that way, and she knows how to work with everybody.
And trust me, you guys, Kate, I've been verbally abusing her for 26 years. You know, never missed an opportunity. And like I said, it's watching her as the governor is almost. I was joking with some friends. We should have done this back in 2010 and just, cut through the chase. Gee whiz. Let me ask you this. Another race. Greg Walden. He's got a challenger. A lot of people in Metro Portland don't know much about his challenger. What can you share about him?
Okay, so the challenger for Walden is... Remind me the name.
Oh, remind me of the name.
Yes.
He's making me forget.
I'm going to make... Yes.
Here, just a second here. Guys, we got a paper here of the name of the challenger. See, I showed you how little we know about him. Where is it? I just had it here.
Is it? It's right here. Is this it?
For Congress, yeah. Oh, it's on the Congress page. Where is it?
No.
Nope. I don't see the Congress page here, guys.
Congress.
Oh, there
District
it is.
2. Jamie McLeod Skinner.
Yep. Jamie McLeod Skin. Let me make sure I said that right. Jamie McLeod Skinner.
Yes.
McLeod. Every time I think about McLeod, I think of the TV show.
Well, yeah, Highlander. But Jamie is a woman. That's why I wasn't pulling the name
Whoa, really? No,
Yes.
even I didn't know that. Tell me. Tell us about Jamie.
So everything that I've seen about her, she's it looks like she's a rancher. From everything that I've seen, and she's she's got a lot of grassroots support. She took 42% of the vote.
Correct.
Above Jennifer, above Jim Crary.
What I'm curious about is what do you think she's going to have to do to be able to beat Greg Walden? I mean, she's got 42% of the vote here. Democrats, which is great. So she's definitely the one that's going to face him. Right now, what does she have to do to get a long-term congressman
to
like
really
him,
do so
to be able to have a shot at beating him?
Well, the same thing that I was talking about. So I think it's a matter of bringing the issues to the voters. Now, first of all, this is a huge landmass that you've got to cover. So we have to activate that grassroots base.
It's huge.
It's huge. Isn't it like 2/3 of the state?
It's 2/3 of the state.
2/3 of the state.
And you got to remember, we're the 8th largest state by landmass in the country.
So
there are states that could fit in here.
Right. So this is giant. So so we have to activate this grassroots network and get everybody out knocking on doors to spread the word. And I think that Walden's biggest vulnerability is that he is voted in lockstep with Trump. And I don't believe that this district values that. I think that when they get their tax returns back and they see how much it's hurting their bottom line, and when they hear about how this is the things that have been voted against, that Walden voted to repeal the Affordable Care Act, I think that that's many people in this district rely on the Affordable Care Act so that they can have health insurance. And they don't want to see that. They were like, why were you trying to take away my health insurance? I want health insurance. And so between those two things, I think that's the crack where we could possibly sway people to move from voting for Walden to Jamie.
Now, he is one of the few Republicans in the West Coast, right? I mean, as far as Northwest, I should say not the West Coast, but the Northwest, because we got a couple of them down in California. What do you think the National Republican Party, how are they going to treat his seat? Do you think they're going to back
They're not going to take it for granted, and they're going to, again, unlimited resources, unlimited finances to keep that seat. Absolutely.
How are the
Spend us
Democrats?
2-1.
looking at Jamie, are they looking at her as a credible opportunity to take him out?
Oh, absolutely. No, there's a huge activation that's happening right now, especially with are you familiar with indivisible groups?
Yeah.
They're surrounding this as a big push.
Okay.
And so we're seeing an activation that hasn't happened. I mean, on this level in politics, in a really long time. People are paying attention in a way that they haven't. So while Trump is Trump, there is a silver lining, if you could call it that, where people are paying attention and coming out and energized. They are motivated.
I'd love to know what the independent party's influence is going to be in that race, as far as against Walden, because you're talking about all this outside money coming in, and definitely campaign. Where do you see campaign finance reform falling in this election cycle?
Well, I think
are people paying attention to it?
Well, see, this is the thing. We're political nerds, right? So we're paying attention to things on a different level than the average voter. So if you look at voting returns for this primary, while people are super energized and we've gotten way more people to vote historically than ever before, number-wise, percentage-wise, 30% of the people turned in their ballots. So what are people looking at? There's a lot of just name recognition and people, honestly, that aren't that engaged, that are just, unless someone is physically knocking on their door and saying, hey, what is happening in your life? This is what I believe in and what I stand for. And then if that message is compelling enough, I think that people would pay attention to that and vote that way.
You know, how do we get people to go there? You know, this name familiarity thing is such an entrenched thing. The issue familiarity is like fifth behind name familiarity.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not even the next issue. It's name familiarity, then, okay, how do people talk about you in the media? You're
Right.
saying, and then it's how do people talk about you at the neighborhood? You know what I mean? It's all about name familiarity.
Well, and so this is where education comes in. I think that we have a whole different culture that needs to happen in the United States, where it's almost shameful not to be engaged and vote. Like, you didn't vote? Ooh, you know, that's gross. So if that starts to become a social pariah thing and everyone starts saying, I'm voting, and they actually do vote, and having maybe like voter parties where people get together with their ballots and discuss the pros and cons of things and make that like, this is a culture. This is what we do as people now, because we're paying attention and we need to know, who are the county auditors? What do they stand for? How do we decide which one's better? And really, I mean, down to the very, because the smallest race has, especially here, like on this local level, has the greatest impact in our lives, and people don't have the information to even vote with any kind of education, and very little information is available.
Now, how many people do you think don't vote because they don't feel their vote matters? Because this is what I hear. I mean, I've run for office a few times, and I've been around politics for the last 30 years. And what I get from people over and over and over again is they don't feel their vote matters. They feel by reading the newspaper,
Right.
they can tell who's going to win. You understand? And so even if they say they're not for the person that got the endorsement, this is one of the reasons why I say as a Democrat, we need to stop the media endorsing candidates totally. We got to stop that. Because what happens is a lot of people see who the endorsement person is, and then they say, well,
I'm done.
I wasn't going to vote for that person, but they've got the Oregonian endorsement. I'm not going to vote. When a lot of people have lost with the Oregonian endorsement.
Right.
But the appearance is the moment the media endorses somebody, my vote doesn't count. I mean, we got this independent guy running for governor. He is not going to get the Oregonian or Willamette Week's endorsement.
Right.
So you got somebody who's an independent, right, who wants to vote for him. But then they see Oregonian Willamette Week and Portland Mercury, they endorse Kate. That governor, that guy who wants to support that governor, that independent governor, candidate, they feel that, hey, why should I vote?
Well, so a correction of that would be to have that ability to say, this is my number one, this is my number two, and this is my number three. And then all of a sudden it opens it up so that, you know, you at least aren't voting for the lesser of two evils. You're voting for what you believe
For
in.
the people who don't quite understand what you just talked about, can you give a brief explanation how that would work?
So it's like voting for your favorite book or anything else. You think, this is my number one choice. So in this last election, there was some contention on the presidential level. I don't know if you were paying attention.
Nope. I definitely was paying attention.
Okay, so then you know that there might have been a little issue. So some people they wanted to vote for a particular Democratic candidate.
Bernie Sanders.
But then they wanted to make sure that their vote counted, right? And so they voted for a person that they thought were more likely to win, rather than voting for wherever their heart was, right? And so a lot of times people feel that they have to vote for where they think they are going to maybe win, rather than where their heart is. And I think that it would open up the Independent Party, the Green Party, all of that. It would make it so that everyone would have to be a lot more competitive, because you could just say, well, this is where my heart is. I absolutely adore this candidate. They have zero chance of winning. But my number two is this, and I know that there'll be an automatic runoff, and my votes will be, if that person doesn't win, it'll just automatically go to the second. And so it all of a sudden means that you have a lot more freedom in who you vote for. And so the whole ranked choice, star voting concept makes it so that the person who has the greatest support can win, and also we can fairly tabulate where voters what their issues are that they really do have heart for. Because right now we're getting a muted message. The electorate hears it, but it's been muffled because you don't see with the numbers exactly what it means. This would give a greater laser precision so that it would be more meaningful data. For this is what the population's really looking for, and we could move it that way. It would. I'm a strong supporter of that personally. Multnomah County Democrats is not supported yet.
Hey,
no, they have.
We're coming to the end of the show.
Gone.
I want to ask Bruce, we need to do a show just on what you were talking about. Everybody, thank you for tuning in for this week's Oregon Voters Digest. I hope you enjoyed the show. We covered a lot of information. Hope you guys have an incredible rest of your Sunday and an incredible week. And tune in next week for another amazing show.
Hey folks, thanks for watching. But now I need to ask you a favor. Is there a topic you want to hear more about? Get on that social media and send me a message. On YouTube, write a comment below the video. Give me a thumbs up if you like it, or a thumbs down if you didn't. And click subscribe. You can also post a message on our Facebook page at facebook.com//Oregon Voter Digest. I love you folks, and I'll see you next week. Take care.